Welcome to the NIALPA podcast, where we bring you real conversations with educators, leaders, and advocates working to advance equity and excellence for multilingual learners across the country. Whether you're in the classroom, at the state level, or somewhere in between, this is your space to learn, grow, and lead with us. I'm Dr. Jovi Lawrence, your host for the NIALPA podcast, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Megan Alubicki Flick, the current president of NIALPA and a nationally recognized advocate for English learners. Megan, welcome. It's so good to be here with you.
Thank you, Joby. I'm so glad to be here with you as well.
Yeah, and it's always good to see you again. I feel like our paths cross like throughout the years. We've just been like in the same space and then we don't see each other for a while and then back together like we just never missed a beat.
It's true. I think we started meeting each other in part through NIALPA.
Yes.
Maybe back when you were president several years ago, and we have crossed paths in a variety of ways ever since. It's always a treat.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to dive in. So I wanted to just start by asking you, for those of you who may not know as much about you as I do, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to the field of multilingual learner education? And then I just really want to know, like, what fuels your passion for this work?
Absolutely. I'm not sure if I had the most direct path to education or to working on behalf of multilingual learners. I grew up in a family of educators and really wanted to define myself outside of education. I just wanted to do something different, and thought that my future profession was going to be social work and Spanish. And so that's really what I studied in my undergrad. But right after my undergraduate education, I moved to Finland for a year. I had a grant to teach English for a year. And I that was really eye-opening for me. So I taught English as a foreign language in a small school. And it just really opened my eyes. I really hadn't spent much time abroad other than studying abroad in Costa Rica. I loved learning about different cultures, learning different languages. It just kind of whet my appetite for learning more about the world, different cultures, different languages. And I came back and got my master's in linguistics and got my teaching credential. And that really set me on my path. So I became a teacher in Connecticut in Hartford Public Schools. It was an amazing experience. I then worked for several years there, did my administrative work, and I then did a Fulbright grant in the European Union where I did language policy research in Belgium and Sweden. And so that was kind of an unusual path also, but it made me curious about the policy side of things. And so I really kind of enjoyed working with students, but also those kind of like big policy ideas as well. And so I found myself interested in state education agency work. So I worked for a couple more years when I got back in the local education agency, in my case, in Hartford Public Schools, and then found my way to the Connecticut State Department of Education, where I've been for 15 years.
Mhm.
And in that time, I have served as the Title III State Director for 10 years. Where I oversee the federal Title III grant, our state bilingual grant, the state's seal of biliteracy, and the associated programs and activities. And in that capacity, it gives me the opportunity to do a lot of national work as well, like being really involved in NIALPA and working with you and other colleagues in those types of roles at the national level.
I love that. And I think what's so interesting is just how many people in education kind of got sucked in. Like it wasn't like, you know, you woke up one morning like, I want to be a teacher. I want to be in education. In fact, you said, maybe I'm going to avoid this because I have people in my family that are already in education and I'm going to take a different path and a different journey. But I think there's something about when you have a calling and you start working with the kids and the families, It's contagious. I mean, there's something about the multilingual learner space that I feel just brings so much joy and feeling of being able to make a difference. I don't know what it is about, just the feeling of working with our multilingual learners and just seeing them grow and seeing sometimes just the path that they had to travel to get to where they are even able to be here in the US and learning English and honoring their home language and sometimes learning their third and fourth language, right? And so when I just think about seeing those journeys that those kids and their families have taken and how you can't be inspired to want to be part of that and help them make sure that every opportunity is available to them, I think it is very contagious. So,
I couldn't agree more. It's incredibly inspiring. When I said at first that I took kind of an unusual path, I
huh?
agree with you. There are occasionally people among us that, from a young age, they say, I want to be a teacher. But I agree with you that
Yeah.
some of us really don't necessarily have, many of us don't have that path, but
Yeah.
we find that that passion is maybe like,
Uh-huh.
fueled within us
Yeah.
somehow.
Yep.
And in hindsight, I've thought many times, social work isn't too far off. Like there
True.
are a lot
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
applicable skills across those professional areas that I've
Hmm.
utilized, and I've been thankful that I had that background that I was able to apply in the education space. And I'm sure that there are a lot of other portable skills that people learn in different background and different fields that they can apply to the education space and likewise. But really, education was in my bones. Like that was where I belong. It is where I
Uh-huh.
belong. And you're
Yeah.
right that there's so much inspiration among our students and our families. I just am incredibly inspired, and among our colleagues.
Yeah.
Like I'm just incredibly inspired by the students that we serve and their families and the colleagues that we work beside.
Mhm.
Um, and in the challenges that they overcome, and we keep working as a field, and these families keep advocating and working on behalf of their children, and these students keep persevering, and it's
Yeah.
really inspiring, and it is what, sometimes, it really is what keeps me up at night, but it is what keeps me going back to work inspired every day too.
Absolutely. Totally. I could not agree more with that statement. So I'm kind of getting into this idea of inspiration. You're now serving a second term as the president of IELPA, and I'm just curious to learn more about what your leadership journey has looked like leading up to your second presidency. What inspired you to take on this national leadership position, and just tell me a little bit more about your leadership journey.
Sure. Well, so this is several years ago. I was looking for ways to really take kind of responsibility, take a more active role in my own professional learning, and develop my professional skills. And one way that I saw an opportunity for that was becoming more involved in a professional organization. And NIALPA to me was a natural fit. I attended the NIALPA conference, which was in LA, I believe, several years ago. That was my first, and it was a relatively kind of like a small, like I like to think of it as like a boutique event.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was really intimate, and it was just a great opportunity to get to know colleagues. And I believe you were there.
Yeah.
And it was just, I felt really like I learned a lot, but I also um, just felt like I was doing this, like a lot of like head nodding, like learning and saying like, wow, these people really get where I'm at. And also I'm like they're several steps ahead of me in some cases, or a few steps ahead of me, or maybe we're in the same we're enduring the same challenges, and I can learn from these people, or we can learn together in a way that was different because I was for the most part a singleton. I say that in a way that there's been improvements, I think, in my state education agency, in that my predecessor really was a bit more of a singleton, in that she was really exclusively flying the flag of our English learner and multilingual learner students. But now I'm really a singleton in that I'm the only person that is focused only on our ELML population in Connecticut 100% of the time, but there are other people that carry some of this expertise in our SEA also, and are, thinking about these students and advocating for them too. But nevertheless, being able to find folks that are like-rolled in other states that are enduring some of those same challenges was a nice opportunity. So when I went to that first meeting, I said, this is a great opportunity. I would like to learn more about this. And one way to do that would be to get involved in the board. So I ran. And I did not realize, Joby, at the time that the presidency was a graduating term. So that when I won the vice president position, that was a 4-year graduating term.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was a big surprise, but a pleasant one. I should
Yeah.
have read the fine print, uh, but that was okay, because
Yeah.
it was one of my best
Yeah.
professional
Oh, yeah.
experiences. And look at me now, because I then, this is my second presidency, so clearly it was something that I truly enjoyed and was honored to
Yeah.
serve in that role. And I was nominated again, and it's been a wonderful experience, a wonderful learning experience for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think you sort of keyed in on something that I hope we're going to talk about here when we talk about NIALPA just in general. But so many of our ELML leaders in our state departments really are sometimes the only one who is flying that flag and carrying the weight of the program on their shoulders. And many times it's just like there's just not enough capacity. So the idea of we need to be in this together. We need support. We can't be the only person that's doing this work, right? We can't feel like we're out on this island with nobody to talk to and nobody to support us and no one to thought partnership around. So when I was, at the Iowa Department of Education, very much, smaller state with smaller Title III allocations, one of me, and there was nobody else, right? And so it's just the way it is. Like when you have a smaller number of ELs, you don't have as much money flowing into to fund those positions. So I just think NIALPA again was that place for me too, where I knew where to go when I needed some help with something, or if I'm running into something or a challenge, I knew not just to rely on NIALPA, but I knew who within NIALPA had a similar challenge to me, right? So because it is a group where you get to know each other really intimately and you really get a chance to talk to each other and really get to know each other's context, you know exactly who to call when you run into this issue because you know somebody, like you said, has already dealt with this, or maybe they've just sort of, worked through a legislative session similar to what you're trying to work through with the policy, right? So I was just going to kind of head into sort of a conversation with you around for any of our listeners who are new to NIALPA. What would you say are the key roles and priorities of the organization?
I'd say, I mean, NIALPA always has a lot going on.
Yeah.
And one of the big changes and shifts over the last couple of years that I think is really, really important, and is something that you and I have both seen in our time as NIALPA members, is a shift from really being focused on the state education agencies exclusively to being
Yeah.
focused on state education agencies and local education agencies. So we're focused on those folks that, like your previous role in Iowa, my current role in Connecticut, work
Mhm.
at the State Department of Education, but also those people that are working in districts. So
Yeah.
we're really focused on folks that are working in both those capacities, and also people that are working in that are interest holders in other roles as well,
Mhm.
and how we can collectively serve as the voice for multilingual learners.
Mhm.
And we're doing that, I'd say, through our key priorities are really like thinking about how we can do that, um, how we can serve as the voice through our championing of our multilingual learners, um, and we're doing that through our committee work. So we have a variety of committees. As I was thinking about the type of messaging that I wanted to share in our conversation today, I looked at some of the other episodes, and I was seeing that people we're talking about the different committees. I was seeing that people are talking about where NIALPA has been helpful to them, bringing about the opportunity to collaborate especially if they feel like they are singletons in their roles. But people did regularly bring up the committees. So we have our AMP committee, we have our professional learning committee, our LEA committee, our communications committee, and our professional learning committee. I think I got them all. So I think our priorities are really around making sure that we can cohesively advocate for, support, and champion our multilingual learners as one voice in a cohesive manner together through that LEA and SEA lens.
Mm-hmm. And I know that one of NIALPA's core strengths is the ability to bridge the policy into practice, which, to your point about really thinking about adding the LEA, membership to the SEA membership and bridging that. From your perspective, what are some of those current policy issues that you believe NIALPA members need to be paying attention to? And how can our NIALPA members engage more meaningfully in these conversations?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
For sure. These are challenging times. As I've been this year in my presidency, we all every time when you're in your presidential year, you provide communications several times a year for the newsletter. And each time I've been writing the newsletter communication, I've found it a bit challenging because I want to be uplifting and at the same time acknowledge that it is a time that is tumultuous and uncertain, especially for families and students with certain identities. And to advocate for those students and families can put people in, can make them feel vulnerable. And our students and our families, many of them feel vulnerable. And so I think now more than ever, NIALPA is in a position to help our SEA and LEA members think about how they can champion our students, champion our families, what actions they can take to leverage the strategies and the rights that our students and families have. The rights that they have and the treatment and things that they deserve. We can do that through both our soft communications by engaging with each other through things like our coffee chats or through our membership platform like ConnectSpace. We have ConnectSpace, which is our membership mechanism. Folks can go on our ConnectSpace platform and engage. It offers an opportunity for our members to indicate topics that they are expert in or that they're interested in learning more about so that people can have a private opportunity to connect with one another through like a private membership-based hub in that ConnectSpace app. But we also have those more external or like formal mechanisms as well through our webinars, through white papers, through those more direct and outward statements of where we stand as an organization. Because the reality too is that the contexts that we're coming from are different. The political contexts of our states, the just the geographical, the political, like there's just a lot of differences in where we're coming from. But because we are an organization of many, we are stronger together. And those numbers enable us to be a stronger advocating or organization that can champion our students.
Yeah, there's a reason that there's that cliche, strength in numbers. It came from somewhere,
Indeed.
right? People don't just start talking about cliches like that because they don't mean anything, right? I mean, I think we all find that we become a lot more um, powerful when we join together as a united voice on behalf of something we all believe in. So I do totally agree with you that one of NIOPA's core strengths is bringing us together and uniting our voice to have not just the power of one voice, but also having the power of many people speaking it all over the country, right? Sending that same message of hope and of resilience and of, rights and what people deserve and opportunities and really just focusing on this idea that humanity's not up for debate. Like, I understand we're going
Absolutely.
to go through transitions of, leadership and presidents and cabinets and, directors and governors and all of those things are going to change. Superintendents at districts and leadership roles will change and people come in with backgrounds, perspectives, priorities. But one thing that should never be up for debate in terms of what we're going to do for our students and our families should be the idea that we all have basic human rights. And I just really
Absolutely.
hope that throughout the time that we're having conversations around, just like you said, different politics and different policies and different perspectives, if we can just agree that we will not lose sight of that throughout these conversations, because that's my biggest concern is that we're going to lose sight of the fact that all of our students deserve those same basic human rights. And I hope that we can advocate for those basic human rights above all else, above language policy, above proficiency, above all those things, right? Because at the end of the day, if we could all approach it that way, I think we can even sometimes have to agree to disagree, but land in the right place on behalf of our kids.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that um, we sometimes being able to say those things is a privilege,
Yeah,
and
100%.
is
Mhm.
a matter of context. And so being a member of NIALPA may give people the opportunity to do that, or
Yes.
NIALPA can be that voice. And so, whereas it might sound a little soundbitey to say something like NIALPA is the voice,
Mhm.
I think that really is something that you can apply here.
Yeah.
Um, there are times when we can't necessarily use our individual voice, or that is something that may feel like it's making someone too vulnerable, but collectively we can. And I think that NIOPA is in a position to be able to do that. And so I'm really proud to be on the board of this organization and to serve beside the members. It's something that I think is really needed now more than ever. And I think it will continue to be an organization that's really essential.
Yeah.
We see the demographic shifts of our country. We
Yeah.
see the growing number of multilingual learners.
Mhm.
Um, and we need to really just keep supporting and championing our students and their families, and for the assets that they bring and are. And we can do that through our organization. And so I'm proud to be a part of it.
Yeah. I saw a statistic and I wish I could remember off the top of my head where I saw it, but over the last few years, there's been a drastic shift in school age population. And the only school age population that's showing growth is our English learner population.
Mhm.
The other school age population of non-English speakers is actually declining. So when you look at what's going to happen over the next, 10 to 15 years, we're going to continue to see more and more of our students across the country who come in who are identified as English learners and who need that extra support. So whatever we can do to continue to build our capacity in our schools, our districts, and our communities to meet those needs is going to become even more critically important than it is today because more and more of our kids are going to come in with those needs.
Absolutely. And that's something that I think it's a very essential point. It's something that I talk about often in my state context, because that is just yesterday I was in a meeting where I was talking about just that. If you look at the the trend, the population trend in school population for our non-ELML students, it is a consistent decline. It's slow, but
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
consistent decline. And the ELML population is the exact opposite, a
Yes.
consistent
Yeah.
incline, but actually much more significant in its
Yeah.
increase.
Yeah.
And we see that nationwide as well. And so I used to pride myself, Joby, on being the person who was, I would always say, I'm the person who's going to poke my head around the corner and say, what about the EL students or the ML students? Or I'd poke my head up under the table and say, what about the ELs? And I would joke.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm joking. But in reality,
Mhm.
from a perspective of an individual professional, it feels nice to be that person in a sense.
Yeah.
But now, as I've developed my professional journey, I see I don't want to be that person. I want to help my colleagues get to a place where I don't have to be that person.
Right.
I want to have that expertise to a degree, but I want to diffuse that expertise so you and I and our other
Yeah.
colleagues don't have to be the only ones who are asking those questions. And there are going to be people that are also sitting at the table. If you
Mhm.
aren't there, if I'm not there, there's somebody else there that's going to say, but what about the multilingual learners? Did we think about them? Did we ask the questions about them? Are we considering them? We don't want it to just be us because we're going to see that they're continuing to grow. And
Mhm.
so in NIALPA, I feel like we are building our own capacity, but then thinking about how we can extend the capacity beyond ourselves too. It's a
Yes.
really essential task that I think is all incumbent upon all of us.
Yeah, 100%. Like if you were to say, what does success look like for our multilingual learners? It looks like you just described. It's where the science consultant in a meeting at the State Department talks about the changes that are going to be made within the science standards with the lens on what is this going to look like for our multilingual learners. They don't have to wait for the EL specialist to come into the conversation.
Exactly.
The science consultant already knows because there's a critical mass of our EL students all across the country, our ML students are across the country where nobody cannot know and be effective in their job. And that's what we're
Indeed.
going to get. And if we don't start really preparing for that, we're going to be in a really tough spot because we're just reaching critical mass of kids where they're becoming the majority of students in a building and in a school. They're the English learners. And so
Exactly.
we need to be able to meet those needs. And here's the great news about that. When we do really well at teaching academic language and meeting the needs of our English learners, the amazing byproduct of that is all of our kids benefit. And
Absolutely.
I mean, if we could just really wrap our heads around that and know that the lifeline for our EL students is actually a huge benefit for all of our kids when our teachers can make content comprehensible, when they can make academic language something that kids can find easily accessible, that doesn't hurt anyone. There's no monolingual English speaker
Absolutely.
hurt by those practices. They all benefit. All of our kids are pulled up to another level when we really focus in on that language piece and scaffold it. So I think if we can just help our content teachers and maybe folks who don't have a background in EL education and have a fear of, well, what's going to happen if everyone was bilingual? How would that change? Like, let's talk about how
Yeah.
that would change things, right? What if
Imagine.
we're all bilingual? Like, there's nothing to be scared of here.
Right?
Yeah, right. So I think there's a lot of myths, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of I don't know what. But honestly, I wish we could just have more conversations around the practices that are really impactful for our multilingual learners, our EL students. Absolutely need those as a lifeline in our contemporary classrooms. I wish people could see the benefit because in a podcast I just hosted for the Assets Grant, we did a four-part series with students. These were high school
Well,
students that were part of a leadership team. We selected some multilingual learners for the team. We had some monolingual English speakers. And when you hear their stories, every one of them, including our monolingual English speakers, talked about how this experience of interacting with diversity forever changed their trajectory and their lives. So diversity is
powerful.
not just for our ELs, it's for all of us. We
Right.
all become better if we have exposure to diversity. So
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And we really need to be better as a field. And I mean that beyond the scope of just EL, ML experts, but as an education field in elevating that concept and promoting that. We
Yeah.
are all better. We all benefit um, when we are applying these strategies, when we are celebrating diversity, when we are promoting diversity. We are all better. We are all being better served.
Yeah, 100%. And my last question for you is just really thinking ahead as your presidency is, you know, maybe wrapping up. Maybe you're going to get another term. We don't even know.
No, no,
It could be,
no.
but as you're thinking about your hopes and dreams for NIALPA moving forward, what are, some of your goals and priorities for NIALPA?
Well, I think NIALPA is in tremendous hands. It's really exciting to see how the organization has evolved. It has been led for many years just by really inspired, motivated, devoted leaders, and that has allowed the organization to build and grow, and I'm just excited to see how the work has continued to build in a way that I'm seeing the organization become more um, systematized, systemic in its approach, focused in its strategies, in its goals, in its work. And I think that the kind of the organizational structure of the board, the advising, and the priorities of the organization, I think it's really been sharpened over the years, and I think I have no doubt that that will just continue. Um, I'm excited to see where it goes. And as you very well know, once you are in NIALPA,
You're always in
you are
NIALPA.
in. Like we hang on
Yeah,
to you for
yeah,
dear life. And
yeah.
so I have no intention of going anywhere. I eagerly will be passing the baton to a very, very capable next president, Dr. America Klinkenbeard, and then Stephanie Vogel will be the president-elect, stepping into that role next year, and they'll be amazing. Um, and I will be stepping into, a different role in NIALPA.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see, what's to come. But then, the executive board will evolve and change, but there will just be more to come. And so I will eagerly wait to see what happens with the committees, the board, the advisors, and more.
Megan, thank you so much for your leadership and for spending time here today sharing your story with us. And then I want to thank our listeners. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you're not already a member of NIALPA, we just want to invite you to join our network of professionals who are committed to advocating and supporting multilingual learners across the nation. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And we want to stay connected. So until next time, keep leading, keep advocating, and keep supporting to make a difference.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Joby. It was wonderful talking to you. I think we could talk all day.
I know, always a pleasure, Megan. And I know we're going to see each other soon and we'll stay connected. Thanks so much.